This is Greg Fowler for Online London. With me is Justin Samlal, who is the candidate in Ward 7. Welcome.
Thank you.
If elected, how many hours per week on average do you expect that you would spend working in your elected capacity?
Well, council in London is designed to be a part-time position. They're expected that the folks that serve as councillors have full-time jobs, which I do. So I certainly put as much time as I possibly could into it, and as much time as the job as councillor required.
Do you think that ward councillors are currently paid enough for the amount of work that they'll do during the next term of City Council?
Absolutely. I 100% think that the current rate of pay for council is adequate, if not excessive, and I would not support any kind of increase.
London's governance model is currently undergoing significant change, and of course that includes elimination of the Board of Control. Do you think that this will increase the necessity for ward councillors to inform themselves about issues outside of their own ward boundaries?
Yes, and I think that's a good thing. I think that this election in particular is very much about big picture issues rather than ward specific issues, and I hope that that trend continues and that councillors serve the city as a whole and not just their constituents.
Do you live within the geographical boundaries of the electoral area in which you're contesting the election?
I do.
How many of your post-teenage years have you lived in London?
How many of my post-teenage years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Have you attended any standing committee meetings over the course of the last 4 years?
I have.
Have you attended any Board of Control meetings over the last 4 years?
I have not.
Are you familiar with the Municipal Act and the Municipal Councillor's Guide?
Relatively.
Strengthening Neighborhoods Task Force recommended development of a neighborhood matching fund type program for large and small community projects besides celebrations and events. Do you support that recommendation?
I'm not overly familiar with it. I'm going to say pass.
Do you support development of a community program to fund the creation of public art in public places?
On the taxpayer's dime, no, I don't.
Should the City of London and its boards and commissions embrace the concept of making their data open and accessible to everybody as often as is possible and adopting open standards for that data?
Absolutely, 100%. I think transparency and accountability are a very key step in moving London forward and helping Londoners be informed about the way council works.
When existing software applications have to be replaced, or when software licenses have to be renewed, should the city adopt the use of open source software whenever that's possible?
Yes, as long as it's secure.
Is the city's communication department being given enough resources, money and personnel to properly maintain the city website and inform citizens in a timely fashion?
I've seen more complicated websites run by less people and less money, so yes, absolutely.
Should citizens be able to subscribe to subject-specific RSS feeds from City Hall in order to stay informed?
I think that's likely something that perhaps councillors themselves can work on rather than City Hall, but it's a great concept.
Should citizens be able to download the agendas of upcoming public meetings, including advisory committee meetings, at least a week in advance?
Yes.
Despite the requirement of the Municipal Act that all City Hall meetings be public, except for specific reasons, it's been argued that they most often are not because of the inability of the public to hear what's being said. Do you support the adoption of a policy which mandates the use of microphones in all public meetings at City Hall?
Yes, and I would also support electronic vote records as well.
Do you think that the City of London ought to be webcasting all of its public meetings?
Yes, that's a great idea.
Do you think that all of the city's boards and commissions ought to be webcasting all of their public meetings?
Yes, except for as the municipal act says, with specific exemptions.
Do you think that the chairpersons of all public meetings at City Hall ought to have to announce motions and amendments to motions and the number of votes for and against those motions so that the public can understand what's taking place?
Yes.
Should London hire an auditor general?
Yes, that's a large plank in my, the number one plank in my campaign platform is to have a independent auditor general appointed to identify areas of waste in both in all departments at City Hall as well as in all union contracts.
Should homeowners have to pay a percentage of the cost for the repair of damage to underground infrastructure on their own property that has been caused by city-owned trees?
No.
Do you agree with the placemaking concept of neighborhood gateways?
Pass.
Should there be increased user representation on the London Transit Commission?
Yes.
If the City of London is going to provide venture capital to businesses, should the city be guaranteed a return on its investment in the event that those businesses become profitable?
That makes sense, though. I think the government should be spending more time on things like infrastructure and letting the private sector develop on its own.
Should people be allowed to naturalize their lawns?
Yes.
Are London's pedestrians and pedestrian issues sufficiently represented at City Hall?
I think so.
The traffic and parking bylaw prohibits people from using any sidewalk for any purpose other than pedestrian traffic, except as specifically permitted. Should downtown patios, which consume most of the width of the public sidewalk, be permitted?
Yes.
When closure of a public sidewalk for construction purposes takes place, what steps should be required to ensure that pedestrians are not forced out onto the roadway in a manner which puts them at risk?
They often will barrier off a separate walkway. I think that's a fine, adequate measure.
Is the warranted sidewalk program sufficiently funded?
Pass.
Is the warranted walkway program sufficiently funded?
Pass.
Old unlit streets are not lit unless there's a local improvement program application and cost sharing amongst owners. Do you agree with that policy?
I think it's probably appropriate based on the resources that London has.
Do you think that special funding ought to be provided to London Police for the purchase of additional Speedwatch radar trailers and the cost of having the auxiliary police section deploy them on a frequent basis?
No.
Should the city be spending as much as it is per year from the federal gas tax to construct on-road bike lanes in London?
No.
Should bicycles be allowed on public sidewalks?
No.
Should persons in motorized wheelchairs and other mobility devices that are on the public sidewalk be obliged to yield for pedestrians?
No. No.
Should the City of London install more bike racks?
Sure. No, actually, I'll take that back. No, not at the cost of the taxpayer.
Do you think that the theft of bikes is an important issue?
No. It's an issue for the police, not for City Council.
Is the City of London currently spending enough money to promote its web-based ride match service?
Yes, probably more than enough.
Should there be dedicated and discounted carpool parking spaces on downtown streets and in city-owned lots?
No.
Should every signalized London intersection provide advanced left turns?
No, only when appropriate.
Does the City of London currently provide sufficient funding for the Community Gardens program?
Yes, and again, likely more than enough.
Should all dogs have to be muzzled when they're not on their owner's property?
No.
Should dogs be allowed at community events?
Yes.
Do you think that people ought to be able to raise chickens in their backyards?
You know, the argument against is that it decreases the value of the neighbors' properties and things like that. But frankly, I mean, when you buy a piece of land, you own it, and as long as you're not breaking any laws or engaging in any activity that's criminal, I don't see a problem.
That concludes the Q&A interview. Thanks for your cooperation.
Thank you.